True resurrection isn't possible, even for a master mage like yourself, but you didn't know that when you tried to bring back your dead wife. So why has the entity possessing her body been pretending to be her for the last 10 years? I had been here, staring at her sleeping, for hours. I'd carried her down to the basement last night, after she'd fallen asleep in our bed for the last time. The doubts had started creeping in slowly over the last month. I'd dedicated the last 10 years of study trying to understand how my desperate, unplanned and frankly amateurish attempt at resurrection had worked, and I'd finally found the answer. It shouldn't have. Getting a corpse to move is a simple enough thing. Necromancy is a reasonably common school of magecraft. But when you animate a body, all you're doing is imbuing an object with your own will. It moves as it's directed, and does what it's told, but it's not the person themselves. They're gone. Nobody knows what happens to the soul at the moment of death. We can measure its existence when we're alive, see it flicker and flare in moments of inspiration, but we've never been able to see what happens exactly at the moment of death. As far as we can tell, it just vanishes. We've tried rebuilding souls, too. Replicating them down the smallest observable detail. The result was disappointing, from a certain point of view, though it was how we developed golem technology. The truth was, we had no idea what made us human. There was something there we couldn't yet observe, and, in our ignorance, shouldn't be able to affect. But somehow, I had. The only rational explanation was that I had done something terrible, opened a doorway for some manner of malicious entity to possess my wife's body. An entity that, for the last decade, had done an incredible job of convincing me that I'd done the impossible, and restored a person to life. The imitation was perfect, not one step wrong, not one odd mannerism. Even the way she slept, atop the blanket I'd brought down with her, was exactly as it should have been. As these thoughts raced through my head for what must have been at least the 50th time, I saw her stir. She looked around herself, at the stone walls, at the complex binding circle drawn on the floor around her, at me staring from across the room, and sighed. I suppose it was always going to come to this, she said, sadly. The circle's unnecessary. And it won't work anyway. I'm not the kind of thing it can contain. I'd expected at least an attempt at deception. It had done so well the last decade, why just give up like this? No matter, it made this easier for me. My wife was never trained in the arcane, she wouldn't have known a binding circle from a traveling gate, let alone what they could or couldn't contain. I rose from my chair and walked slowly towards the thing in the circle. I'll be brief, I said. What are you? I saw tears glisten slightly in the eyes of whatever was wearing my wife's skin. I can't tell you that, she replied. The runes on my robe flared with a soft green light as I summoned my will. I felt my enchantment float across the room and wrap itself gently around the creature's mind, holding it like a vice, tight, but not enough to do any damage. I won't ask nicely again, I growled. The room itself trembled slightly, and I took a moment to compose myself. A loss of emotional control was dangerous enough in a novice evoking a simple spell, let alone a master holding another creature's mind in their hands. I saw her struggle a little against the grip of the enchantment, but my hold was strong. I told you, I can't tell you. She must have felt the spell around her mind shift, ready to begin extracting the answers I wanted, because she very quickly held both her hands up and continued, but I can help you figure it out. Please, sir, you don't want to do this. It was right, I didn't. But I had to know what manner of thing I'd let loose for so many years, and where to send it back to. Cautiously, I relaxed my grip. I could always do that later, as a last resort. Go on, I said.